Circus Day at Merryvale by Hale Burnett. Chapter 3. Toad and Reddy Earn Their Tickets. It was a walk of 6 blocks to the big circus tent, but when Reddy and Toad arrived, they found a crowd of small boys there. "Humph! Do you suppose he asked all the boys to help?" questioned Toad. "No, those fellows are just waiting around to get a look at the elephants. He asked only boys that looked strong, like we do," answered Reddy. "Wonder what kind of work he wants us to do," was Toad's next question. "I suppose we'll find out in a few minutes." Upon reaching the tent, the boys walked up to a man who was seated on a box and asked him if he knew where they could find their friend, who wore a large hat and checked suit. "He told us to come around here at 9 o'clock and we could work for 2 tickets, explained Toad. "All right, Bub, you both come along with me," saying which the man arose and pulled aside the flap of the tent. The boys followed him, and when inside they stood very close together, for there, a few feet away, were the elephants, in a long row, swaying their bodies back and forth. They seemed very large to the boys and had a very wicked look in their eyes. "Now, Sonny," said the man, putting his hand on Reddy's shoulder, "you and Bub take those pails and fetch some water for the elephants. The tap is away at the back of the tent. Each elephant must have 2 pails, and after you have given them all drinks, come to me and I will give you the tickets." "All right, sir," answered both Toad and Reddy as he left them. "I like the other man best," said Reddy. "So do I," agreed Toad. "Wish we had seen him first." "Oh well, let's hurry and get the water," said Reddy, and both boys started off with the pails. Away at the back of the tent, as the man had told them, they found the faucet, and Toad, filling his pail first, waited for Reddy so that they could walk back together. At first the pails didn't seem to be so heavy, and it was fun to watch the elephants drink. But after the 4th trip, Reddy thought they ought to rest. So they sat down, but not for long. "You get to work, kids. Those elephants got to have their water before the parade or they'll act mean," said a man who was raking hay from a big stack in one corner of the tent. At this, Reddy and Toad set to work once more, but this time they carried a pail between them. It was slower, but much easier, and at last each elephant had its water. "Now for the man and our tickets," cried Toad. But the man was nowhere to be seen. They spent 15 minutes looking all over for him. "I told you I didn't like him," said Reddy. And there were tears in his eyes. He wouldn't cry, not for worlds, but he was very tired and tears would come, so he winked very hard to keep them back. "Oh, look, there's our friend," suddenly called Toad. And both boys started on a run after him. In a minute more, the big man had heard their story, and as he listened, his face lost its smile. Calling to a man nearby, he told him to tell Jim Lewis he wanted to see him. "I'll teach him to play such tricks," he muttered. "Here, boys, are your tickets and 2 extras. I wouldn't have given you such hard work, but since you've done it, you've earned these tickets too." "Oh, thank you, sir," exclaimed both boys, dancing around with joy. "That's fine of you." "Who are you going to take with you, Reddy?" asked Toad, as they started down the street to wait for the parade, which would soon be passing. "Guess I'll take Fat," was the answer. "Who will you take?" "I don't know," said Toad, feeling in his heart that he should take Herbie, but wanting very much to have Chuck go. "Perhaps I'll take Herbie. I'll think it over." The boys seated themselves on a fence, and before long the loud blast of the steam calliope was heard. The circus parade had started. There was a large crowd. Most of the town had turned out to watch. The wagons filled with clowns doing all sorts of funny things came first. Their faces were painted white, and with large red mouths it gave them a queer look. One leaned over and called out, "Hello, boys. Want to water any more elephants?" "I remember his voice," said Toad. "He's the man our friend sent to find Jim Lewis." "Seems just as if we belong, doesn't it?" asked Reddy. "Yep," answered Toad. "Look, here comes the animal cages. There's the lion. Glad we didn't have to water him. Here's the lady that rides on one toe. She looks just like that picture where she is standing on the horse's back. That man with her, in the high hat, stands in the ring and cracks the whip to make her horse go faster. But she doesn't care," said Reddy. "She just laughs. She's not afraid of any horse. I wish it wasn't ever going to end," sighed Toad. "Well, if it didn't, how would we ever see the circus?" asked Reddy. "That's so, but it's such fun sitting here," replied Toad. The boys followed the parade back to the tent and then hurried home to show their tickets and tell how they had earned them. It was Saturday noon, so Father Brown was home for luncheon. When Toad told all he had done that morning and showed the 2 tickets he had earned, his father said, "Well, Thomas, that's fine. Who are you going to take with you?" "I think, Dad, I'll take Herbie." "Herbie!" exclaimed his father. "And leave Chuck out?" "Yes, sir," replied Toad, feeling very much troubled. Mother Brown laid her hand over his and said to Father, "Thomas and I will talk it over after luncheon," and she smiled. Now when Mother smiled, Toad felt it would all come right. Why hadn't he thought of Mother before? She always understood, and so it turned out, for after she had heard all about Herbie having spent his money for the rabbit instead of for a ticket to the circus, she said Chuck should have a chance to earn some money too, and that Toad was quite right in wanting to take Herbie. "But I wouldn't spend all of that quarter, my boy. Save some for the hungry pig," said Mother. Now the hungry pig was a china pig with a slit in its back to make him a bank, and Toad was saving in that bank so that he would be a rich man someday. "All right, Mother," he answered. "I will." Just as the boys were leaving to go for Herbie, Mother Brown handed a large bag of cookies to Toad. "Have a good time, children, and come home directly after the circus and tell me about it." "By jinks, I feel sorry for boys who haven't any mothers," said Toad. "Yes, for our mother always seems to know how a fellow feels," replied Chuck.